Great. Okay, Kathryn, so welcome in my podcast. I'm very happy that you decided to share your story.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah. Well, would you like to start maybe tell us something, just a little bit about yourself, like brief introduction?
Okay, well, my name is Kathryn Lowry, and sometimes I go by Kitty. I'm 49 years old. I've been on this planet for this time for almost half a century. And it's taken all that time for me to get where I am today, finally.
Okay, cool, cool. You experience like a really deep trauma, right? That many people could describe as a tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I'm impressed by your light and how you dealt with it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel there was some purpose in this experience?
Yes, I do, Claire. I feel like there is purpose in everything that we experience here on this planet. Every experience that we have, whether it's good or it's bad, there's a reason for it. And I don't feel like anything that I have ever been through that I wouldn't go through it again. um, Honestly, I feel like if it, how can I explain this? Have you ever heard the story of the bus driver?
Which one?
Okay, so you have to think of it like this. And my friend Ellie told me this. Think of a bus driver who's driving down the street and a cat runs out in front of his bus and he swerves to miss the cat and in the process wipes out an entire family walking down the sidewalk. Kids, parents, everything. Okay, somebody has to be that bus driver. Somebody has to choose, because I believe we all choose our destinies before we come to this planet, before we come into consciousness on this planet. I feel like we all choose what role we are going to play in this human experience. So somebody has to choose to be the bus driver. And I believe that some of us that chose to go through major trauma and major loss and grief, whatever it is, chose those jobs or those roles because we are light workers and we are the ones that can actually handle it. We're strong enough to deal with it. So that, yeah, I think that it serves a purpose. There's somebody has to take on those roles because this planet is not it's not the most light and love planet in the universe, obviously. So I feel like I just chose that role before I came here. I feel like whenever this trauma happened to me, it was several years ago when I was like 19 years old, and I won't go into details, but the boy that I was with, my boyfriend at the time, he had been engaged to another girl, and he broke up with her to be with me. And when this happened to us, it was in Mexico. And when this happened to us, I came to the realization that if he would have been with that other girl who was raised in a small town like he was, she probably would have died that night, and he probably would have too, because I literally had to put survival skills into motion and get him up and out of there before once I made sure that those guys that kidnapped us weren't going to come back. I had to get him up and get him out of there, because if he would have stayed unconscious like he was, and if she had been in my position, she probably would have been unconscious too, just from the trauma of what happened, of the violence of the act of these criminals. So I'm sorry, it's hard for me to talk about this. Anyways, the trauma that she would have endured probably would have knocked her unconscious. And when there's unconscious bodies and there's blood involved, then there's buzzards, and they probably would have ended up dying out there. Those guys probably thought that we were dead, and because I played dead for them to leave. Anyways, so I feel like I came to this planet to save that woman's life. That's what I feel like my purpose was. And I took her place basically so she could live. That's what I feel, and I would do it
Mm.
again.
How did you heal this deep trauma?
Well, I didn't for a long, long time. For a long time, I started doing a lot of drugs, and I got addicted to methamphetamines for many, many years, and I ended up in prison 2 times, which was also traumatic. And I just continued to just basically slowly kill myself, I guess. I developed pseudo seizures, and I developed a cutting disorder. And I'm not talking about like little bitty cuts, like, oh, poor me, somebody needs to pay attention to me. It was like I would get angry and literally take a knife and slash my arm open, just out of anger. I was just see red and just frustration. So finally, after being in federal prison 2 times and having about 30 years of drug addiction behind me, I decided that I wanted to get sober. And so I went to rehab, and I'll tell you more about that later. Whenever I think you have some other questions you want to ask me about the ketamine therapy and stuff. So that's basically what I had to do. I had to go to rehab, and I had to kind of research the psychedelic therapy and started working with mushrooms and stuff. And that's pretty much how I healed.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's really impressive, the transformation that you went through.
Yes.
So you said that in one of your journeys you met God, right?
Yes. When I started working with the mushrooms, actually I started experimenting with mushrooms before I ever went to rehab. And whenever the first couple times I did it, it was very fun, and then it was very scary. And I remember the last time, the day before I went to rehab, I did like 4 grams of, they call it penis envy, PEs. And it's a very strong strain. And I did probably 4 grams with my friend Sasha. And I was literally looking at myself in the mirror and seeing a demon. And I believe that is because methamphetamines are a very demonic substance, and they open up your consciousness to allow the dark forces to come in, the demons to come in. So I would look at myself in the mirror and I was seeing a demon. It was really scary, and I thought I was going to die that night, actually. And I remember telling my dad, who just died in 2021, like 3 days before my birthday, I remember telling him, Daddy, I'm coming to see you. I'm coming. And I heard him clearly yell at me from wherever he is, tell me, no, you're not, Kathryn. And I said, yes, I am. I'm dying. I'm coming to see you. And he says, no, you're not. Just stop it. And that's exactly how he would have talked to me. So anyways, that time it was scary. So it was really scary for me. And you can experience a bad trip, but no trip is a bad trip. Really what you're doing is you're experiencing the release of traumatic things, or the release of negative energies that are might be bottled up inside you for whatever reason. And I ended up going to rehab to detox the very next day. And I had been researching ketamine therapy because my friend Michelle had told me that she was doing ketamine therapy. And ketamine therapy is another psychedelic therapy. I don't recommend you doing it like for any other reason except for to maybe get off of a substance or alcohol. It helps with withdrawals. It helps with cravings. And I found a detox that offered it. And so that's where I went. I went to that detox the very next day after I just had that bad experience. And I mean, I wasn't against the mushrooms at that time at all. I just knew I was having a bad trip. I probably took too much or something. I don't know. But later on, I realized it was for my benefit. So, and it was kind of spiritual that night too. My friend Sasha was talking to me a lot about her grandmother and how strong her faith was, and how unshakable and unbreakable her faith was, are the words that she used. And she was telling me that she put her hand on my shoulder. I remember, I don't even know if she remembers telling me this, but she says, Kathryn, I just want you to know I am here with your angels right now, and they are telling me to tell you that you don't ever have to be addicted to drugs again. This is the last time you have to go to rehab, and you don't ever have to do this again. I'm sorry, I'm going to cry. Anyway, so that's my best friend, Sasha. And so it was spiritual in that degree that was, but I cried all night long. And anyways, I went to detox the next day. and I did the ketamine therapy for 3 or 4 days while I was there. They did it intravenously, and that kept me from having cravings, and it kept me from having withdrawals. It kept me from having withdrawals during the detox process, and then whenever I went to the actual rehab, the inpatient rehab, it kept me from having the cravings the entire time I was there. It also helped me to be able to refuse my psych meds that they were trying to push on me. And I was able to sit there and recognize how badly people get addicted to those drugs as well, the pharmaceuticals. And there was literally this was literally a beautiful place with 3 lakes, and it was called Cypress Lakes Lodge. They let my service dog come with me, which was a blessing. Also, that's also one of the reasons I was able to stay there. And I would literally watch these people for 2 hours in the morning stand in line and fight over their places in line to get their drugs, to get their psych meds. And I'm just like, wow, this is crazy. This is just not good. But those, I guess doing the ketamine therapy made me able to not have those cravings and not have the psychotic episodes that people do have whenever they're coming off of drugs and withdrawals and everything. So I was able to not take the medicine they were trying to give me, and I was able to recognize what was happening. So, anyways, did I answer your question? Was that
about God, like
okay about that? Okay, so
what,
I'm sorry. Okay, so when I came back out of rehab, I decided I wanted to do a full moon mushroom journey on June 14th of 2022. And I got some mushrooms from a friend of mine. I got 7 grams, and I was trying to get friends to do it with me, and nobody wanted to do it. So I decided I was just going to say screw it and go to bed. And I went to bed, fell asleep, and about 3:30 in the morning, that's another thing. The number 3 is very significant in my life. I've been seeing it for many, many years, ever since the first time I went to prison. So about 3:30 in the morning, I was woken up and I was told, weigh out 2 grams of mushrooms, put them on a salad, and eat the salad. And I was like, okay. So I did, but I only weighed out 1.5. And when I finished the salad, I heard another message, 2 grams. And I was like, okay. So I weighed out another 0.5 and I ate that. And I began to really start feeling the effects pretty strongly. And so I got a little bit scared, and I had downloaded this app called Field Trip app that I had used on some of my home ketamine therapy. And sorry, hold on a second. This app is really beneficial. It really helps with these journeys, and it gives you options to listen to different types of meditation music or to guided meditations, helping you ease into a journey or setting an intention or whatever. And so the first one I think I started playing was Sabina Pillai, Pillai is how you spell her last name. And it was the setting an intention. And I don't remember doing this, but apparently I pushed the record button. I set my intention, God, show me your presence. And then I proceeded to listen to another guided meditation, which was called Easing In to and Deepening Your Trip. And she just kind of like walks you through it. She just talks very slowly, very soothing, and helps you just relax. And that really helped me. Come to find out the next day, whenever I listened to it, I heard my intention recorded as God, show me your presence. And that's exactly what happened. God showed me its presence. So a little bit later, I guess after I listened to the meditations, I got another message to go outside. And I was like, oh no, that's kind of scary. I really don't want to go outside. But I did. I listened, and I went outside into my backyard, and I stood underneath this tree that's coming over from my neighbor's yard. And I look up, and the full moon is right in front of my face, big and bright. And there's these 2 bands of light coming out the sides of it like this. And I started seeing all kinds of sacred geometry, aliens' faces, angels in the moon, just all kinds of different symbols in those 2 bands of light and in the moon's face. And I started getting messages from God. I believe, I know it was God, because what I was told was, I am everything. I am in you, and you are in me. And I am everything. Love yourself, Kathryn. I love you so much. And I was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, what is happening here? I fell to my knees and I immediately started just asking for forgiveness and praying and saying thank you to Jesus, God, the Holy Spirit, Buddha, all of them, who the one God, there's just in my mind, there's just one God, and we're all just manifestations of that one God. And we all can call God by whatever name we want to call God by. You know, I have a lot of judgment right now because I got baptized this Sunday, and because it was important to my family, and they're telling me that I have to stop calling God anything but Jesus. And I just don't believe that. I am Christ conscious, but I don't think that that's the only way to get to God, because God has told me, you know, uh, on a different occasion, God told me I had done mushrooms the night before and I went to sleep on them, and I was having all these weird dreams of like cell phones uh, exploding and cell phones turning into credit cards and stuff. And all this crazy stuff, like what's probably going to happen whenever the internet gets shut down, because they are trying to control us, those dark forces. Anyways, God told me, Kathryn, if somebody asks you, tell them that the only way to find me is to look within themselves. That is the only way. They cannot rely on an entity or something other than themselves to save them. So don't go out to the churches and tell them that, because they're not going to listen to you. But if somebody asks you, tell them they have to look within to find me, because I am in all of my creation. Basically, God told me that I asked him about the aliens that night when I had the full moon journey, and she said, the aliens are real. And I had been watching this guy, Matthias DeStefano, who remembers all of his past lives. He thinks of himself as a memory cell in the body of the universe. And I had been listening to him. That's where I learned a lot of my information about the aliens and stuff. And then this experience just confirmed it, because I asked God, I was like, are aliens real then? I already knew they were, but I just wanted to ask. And God's like, yes, they are all my creation. I created them all. They are all my children, and I love all of them. Everything you have been learning from Matthias is true. It's real. So I would encourage anybody watching this podcast to start watching some podcasts that Matthias has put out there, because he really explains the beginning in a very, very understandable way. So, anyway, so yeah, that was that night. And then the other night when God told me, I get messages all the time now from God. So I think that the mushrooms have really helped me open up my consciousness, so I can receive these messages from God and from my guides, from my planet. I know what planet I'm from. I've been told a lot of things since this happened, and I attribute it to the mushrooms, because I don't think my consciousness could have ever gotten expanded so quickly and easily without that medicine, especially being that I did methamphetamines for 30 years of my life, except for when I was in prison, and really, honestly, like my brain is literally rewiring. When I was in rehab, I could hear it going, it would wake me up at night. I could hear the sound of it. And I went to the doctor, to the nurse, and asked him, what is that? Why am I hearing all that weird noise in my head? And he's like, well, your brain's probably rewiring, And from what I understand, the mushrooms create new neural pathways in your brain. So what it does is it puts this part of your brain to sleep, which is all of your, I'm not sure if it's all your critical thinking or whatever, your subconscious or your frontal lobe, whatever. It puts this part to sleep, and it starts creating new neural pathways in the parts of the brain that we don't even use. So how beneficial is that? That's amazing. Anyways, so that's pretty much sums it up, I guess, my experience of meeting God. And I talk to God all the time now. I hear from God all the time. The other day, my sister got COVID right after, she found out she had COVID right after I got baptized. And I was literally able to, I had taken mushrooms later that day. And I was literally able to like just bust out a song for her that talked about her resting her weary head on this knee, and in the end it says, "It's me, Jesus, the owner of this knee." It's just I did it so quickly, and I told her, I said, "Do you?" I said, "That couldn't possibly be because you organized my baptism today that I'm hearing from Jesus now, is it?" So, anyways, every time I do the mushroom, something good happens, and I'm able to do the right things, and I'm able to pull my oracle cards, and it's just spot on about what's going on in my life, and they're just really enlightening to me.
So it opened your channels, right? And you became a channel, and you can like you discovered your spiritual gifts, basically.
Yes, it did. It opened my channels, and I do believe I'm channeling. I do believe I channel a lot, and I've also been able to see like my main guide. I guess I don't know. I haven't really figured out if she is my creator, and she's just appearing to me as one of the felines, alien species, which is they're from Sirius. They're from a planet, the Syrian planet, or the feline species are interstellar, so they are very enlightened, and they come from a planet of pure love and light, which is the planet Sirius. They are also great warriors, and they are here helping us actually. And so I've seen every time I have a vision of who Amma is, and that's what I call God, Amma. I call God Amma for some reason. It just came to me that night when I had that experience in my backyard, and that's who that's how I see Amma, as a lion. She looks like a lion.
Mhm. That's your guide, yes. And how did it change you, like meeting God and talking to Him and channeling His
It's
consciousness?
changed my entire life there. I mean, it's just okay. So when I first went into this journey, this particular full moon journey, I had turned from God. I was mad at God. I didn't think that God loved me. Let me go back to why this happened. I had turned my life completely over to Jesus Christ in prison the first time. And then I got out, and I was sober for 3 years. And then I started using again, and I got addicted again to drugs. Well, during that time, I had hooked up with my ex-boyfriend, who was a horrible person. He did a lot of domestic violence on me, which was also very traumatic. And he was just a horrible person. I hooked back up with him, and he got put in jail. And so I was on probation from being in the feds for 5 years for the first time I got into trouble. And mind you, I just got in trouble for conspiracy, for being in the wrong place at the wrong time, for being an addict. Basically, I wasn't doing what they said I was doing. I mean, the guy that I was staying with was doing it, but I wasn't. I was just using the drugs. So basically, for being an addict, I got put in prison for 5 years, and they never asked me why I was an addict. They never inquired whether something had happened to me that caused me to feel like I needed to suppress those memories with drugs. They didn't care. But anyway, so let me go back to this. I got back together with AJ, and he ended up getting put in jail, and I was on probation, and I figured out a way to get him out of jail because he was threatening to kill me if I didn't, and I knew he meant it. So I got him out, and the next day I checked, actually the same day that I got him out after he beat me up, I checked myself into a Christian rehab for downtown. It's called Haven for Hope. And again, I turned my life completely over to Jesus, and I was being told by these people, wait a minute. The marshals came and got me out like a month later. They came and took me out and stuck me back in jail and I was charged with associating with a convicted felon. That's what I was charged with. And they were going to put me back in prison for that. And I was being told by the people from the rehab that Jesus was going to save me, that I was doing the right thing, and Jesus was going to save me. I was going to walk into that courtroom, and I was going to be a testimony to everybody because I love Jesus, because I gave my life back over to Jesus. And when I walked into that courtroom, I guess it was 3 months later of sitting in county jail, I believed with every cell in my entire body that Jesus was going to save me from going to prison. And the prosecutor looked at me and he says, "Miss Lowry, you let a violent federal felon back out on the streets. I'm going to recommend you get the maximum time allotted for your probation, which is 30 months in the custody of the Federal Bureau of Prisons." And the judge slammed his gavel and says, "Miss Lowry, you are recommended to the Federal Bureau of Prisons for a period of 30 months. And I was like, I was like, screw God and screw Jesus. They don't exist. It's not real. I don't believe in it anymore. So I turned my back from all of that. And while I was in prison, I started studying different spiritual paths, and I studied paganism, and that's what I decided that I was. I decided I was a green witch because I love to work with plants and stuff, and I wanted to work with plants when I got out. And I was a solo witch, and I still believe I'm a witch. I do. But anyways, because I'm a healer. So that's what I decided I was, pagan. And at the time, I knew there was something bigger and greater than us, but I just couldn't really put my finger on it. And I didn't want to ever even say the word God or Jesus. I just didn't believe it. And so when I had this spiritual experience and God's literally spoke to me and told me that how much it loved me and how it has never been the cause of any of those things happening to me. God told me, I didn't do any of those things to you, but you had to go through those things to know my love for you here today. God also told me, honor your mother. Your mother has been preparing this home for you for many, many years so you could have this experience with me here tonight. And there was just so many messages that night. There was God talked to me about the water. God told me to come into my house and give my puppies water. And when I started to walk in, I was like, wait, I don't want you to leave me. Please don't leave me. I want to go with you. And God says, Kathryn, I have never left you and I will never forsake you. Go give your puppy some water and check on Loki. He needs you because my dog Loki his feet had gotten cut up at the river a couple days before. Anyway, so I went to go give him water and I'm standing in my bathroom and I hear from God again. And God's like, look at the water. And I looked at the water. I was like, oh my God, it's alive. And God's like, yes, water is life. Drink fresh water every day. And I was like, wow, this is it was just amazing. It was just a really good experience. And that's what I believe healed me completely. My life changed after I had that experience because like I said, I had turned completely from any type of God or Jesus, any kind of religious stuff. But anyways.
You also said he mentioned that it's actually dangerous to rely on him, right? That it can.
Yes. Yes, it is. Because what happens is, okay, so first of all, when you read the Bible and they talk about all the hell and damnation that these people in these organized religions teach, that's absolutely not true. From what I've been told, from what God has told me, God would never send any of his children to hell. It would be like you having a child and your child is the worst human on this planet. You might think that child needs to be separated from society, but you are not going to watch that child burn in a pit of fire for eternity, and neither would God. That's the example that God told me to use when talking about hell. Also, oh my God, I lost my train of thought. Yes. So also God told me that we have to be very careful whenever we are saying that an entity is going to save us, because like me, when I went to that courtroom and I thought that Jesus was going to save me and it didn't happen, it caused separation from God. When we tell kids when they're little that they are going to go to hell because they're bad, because they're crying or whatever, and God's going to punish them, we're causing division and separation from what God really is. So those things we just have to be very careful, especially with kids. We have to be very careful what we tell them and how we explain it to them. And we don't ever want to make them feel ashamed, for the things that they do. We need to discipline them in a loving way and don't put the fear of God into them, because that's the worst thing that you can do, because then they fear God and they might not believe that there is a God if they think that God is going to send them to a pit of fire because they're crying or they stole something from the store or whatever.
So always to rely on yourself or to see yourself as a God, right?
Yes, we are God. In my opinion, and from what I've been told, we are God. Mm-hmm. Yep. And God is us. We're everything, and we are everything and nothing, and that's what God is too. Everything and nothing.
Mm. Do you plan channeling for others in the future?
I do it now, actually. The other day when me and my friend Tommy were here and I had taken mushrooms and he wasn't on mushrooms, but I was telling him what my guides, because my guides they always say when they speak, they say we, they use, uh, we, and they use there's more than one entity there speaking to me. Um, I only see one, and that's Amma. So that's what I'm thinking is that's just how God is revealing herself to me. And Amma for me means divine mother. There's a song by Dub Sutra called Bow to You, and I was just listening to it the other day, and I had taken some mushrooms, and I was going to the gym, and during one part of the lyrics, he says, "We bow to you again and again and again." And I swear to God, he says this, Claire, "Ama." He says, "Ama," and I was like, "What?" And I just heard this. I mean, I just recognize this in this song that I've been listening to for a while, a couple of weeks ago, and I had other people listen to it, and they're like, "Yep, that's what he's saying, Ama." And so there's a lot of confirmations that come through music and stuff for me. Another one is by that same band. It's called Water is Life. And it starts out, the lady says, I am a reason, I am a reason with purpose, a voice of 1,000 generations of ancestors speaking to your children, and they are saying, water is life. I didn't hear that song before I had that experience. This experience is almost a year ago, and I just heard that song like a month ago or 2 months ago. So there's a lot of confirmations that come through songs. But anyways, I'm sorry. I was telling you about channeling for Tommy. So I was channeling for Tommy, and my guides were telling me he's with this girl that's just not very good for him. And my guides told me to tell him that. I said, "Do you want to hear what they're saying, Tommy?" And he says, "Yeah," because he also hears entities speaking in his head, but this is more like downloads that I'm getting. He's actually hearing voices, and they're arguing with each other and stuff. So he believes me whenever I tell him I'm hearing these entities, but he's also addicted to meth. So anyways, there's some of my friends I still hang around with that do it, and I just try to help them. I try to help them with the mushrooms and stuff, and not all of them want to do mushrooms. But anyway, so Tommy asked me, he told me yes, he wanted to hear what they were saying. I said, they are telling me to tell you to get that woman out of your life. She's going to destroy you. The way she's going about things, she's not good for you. I mean, she's already stole like $100,000 from him this year, and I hope he doesn't see this podcast because he's gonna be mad for me just telling it. But anyways, they were telling me to tell him that, like, you need to get rid of her. I mean, she's going to destroy your business and everything else. And come to find out, the next day, I got a text message from some random number, and it says, "How long you been effing my man?" And apparently, she went through his business. I'm in his contacts as a client. Apparently, she went through his contacts as the business contacts, and started text messaging people, things like that are the women that has as clients. I was like, Tommy, I told you yesterday what my guides were telling me. But anyway, so yeah, I do. I channel for people sometimes. I do.
Ah, amazing. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to see more of it, maybe even in videos or something in the future.
Yeah, for sure.
And would you recommend to others who experience also deep trauma how to heal it based on your experience?
I would definitely say to consider the psychedelic therapy, and maybe going, if you can go somewhere, if you have the money to go to Peru or something, and doing an ayahuasca journey. That is supposed to be, I've not experienced it myself, but I have a lot of friends that have, and they tell me you literally experience an ego death whenever you do ayahuasca. I feel like I've done that with just the mushrooms. I would highly recommend just researching the psychedelics and stuff, and seeing, what would be best for you. And then also having somebody there to guide you is really important. Somebody who knows, that can help you through the journey. Because if you have a bad trip, it might turn you away from trying it again. It might scare you. And you have to realize that even a bad trip is a good trip. I mean, because when you're crying and you're, you're thinking about all these things that maybe you had forgotten that are traumatic in your life, you're releasing that trauma every time that you do one of these journeys, and you will release trauma until you don't have any trauma anymore. I'm still releasing trauma. I'm still remembering things that I had forgotten about. Not such a, violent traumatic experiences, but more like, one of my dogs that got shot a few years back, I remembered him. And then my dog Loki revealed himself to me as that dog reincarnated as Loki. And so, yeah, I release all kinds of things almost every time I do it. The past couple times I've done it, I've just had a good time. I haven't cried really at all. So I guess maybe I'm getting closer to the end of my traumatic experiences, being able to just enjoy the mushrooms. Not that I don't enjoy it, sometimes the crying gets a little bit much. So yeah, I would just recommend them to research the medicine and try to find people that help them, guide them through the journeys.
And what does it do with you actually when you take mushrooms? Like, what is the healing benefit, at least in your case?
Just the ability to remember things and to cry about them, and feeling so close to source when I'm on them, makes me realize that every traumatic experience that I've been through has been something that I chose to do before I even came to this planet, and it was for a reason. It's not really bad. It's just experience. I mean, I've had so much life experience now at almost 50 years old, that I can pretty much handle anything. My friend told me that it's like putting a piece of iron in the fire for years and years and years, and it just makes it stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And that's what God has done with me. And I'm sure many, many other humans, probably mostly light workers. I believe that the people that go through these experiences are light workers. They have to be, in order to be able to deal with it. They're not just humans living their first human experience. So,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
that's usually what happens for me, Claire. You do see a lot of visuals and stuff the first couple times you do it, but if you do it as often as I do, it's those kind of stop happening. You have to give yourself a break in order to have those full sends. We call them full sends. You have to kind of have a break, before because your tolerance will build up quickly.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, I think we covered pretty much all what we wanted to talk about. Is there something more that you would like to share with others?
Um, Well, another thing that's helped me with my traumas and stuff is having service dogs. And I just opened my own business at the first of the year to start training dogs and service dogs, just training, period. And actually, been really successful so far. I've got a lot of potential clients, and I just sold one of my puppies for $2,500, just
Yeah.
as a dog, because he's such a good dog, and I know my bloodlines for my dogs, and they're gonna have us train him as a service dog. He's actually up in Houston right now with his new owners, and he's gonna be going every other week up there, and then they're gonna be reinforcing whatever I'm training him here. They're gonna reinforce it up there. So, having service dogs or emotional support dogs and mushrooms is what healed me, I think.
In which state do you provide this service?
In Texas,
In Texas. Ah, okay.
San Antonio, Texas. Yes.
And what do you like about it, or what is it about for you?
Well, really, it's more of training the people to train their own dogs and saving them tons of money by doing that. I mean, and seeing okay, so the lady up in Houston suffers from seizures. She literally has not had a seizure since she met me and my partner, my business partner. She hasn't had a seizure because she knew she was getting that dog. She's the one that bought the dog, and so she's not had a seizure in 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks, I believe. So just helping people, with their dogs, and helping them understand the healing benefits of having such a loving animal and such a loyal friend. It's really helpful. It's really beneficial. So that's what I like about it. I just like helping the people and the dogs.
Yeah, I can imagine it can take a lot of pressure from their shoulders, right? If they have, especially some shelter dog or some problematic dog,
Somewhat.
like a shelter dog, or
Yeah.
some.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't recommend getting those dogs for service work, especially if it's older. I mean, if you get a puppy, maybe, but those dogs remember their traumas too. They do. And you might be able to work that out of them, but you really, I just don't remember. That sounds horrible. I'm sure I'm going to have a lot of animal activists telling me that I'm not saying the right things, but you just have to be careful because you don't know where that dog came from, and they remember the traumatic experiences, and anything can trigger them if they see something that reminds them of what they went through before they were rescued. So,
mm, okay,
but I'll
sounds like
train
a
any of them.
perfect,
I'll try to train
perfect
any of
course.
them.
Yeah. Well, if you don't want to add anything, then we can just finish.
Okay.
I'm very grateful that you showed up and you shared your message with us
Yep.
again.
Yes, ma'am. I'm happy to do it. I'm honored to be here with you. I really am. And I appreciate you so much. I really do. So,
Thank you. Yeah, so